Take or without, we gon' make it. Show the world that I shine in our greatness. Keep it real, never gon' fake this. Till we make it. Taking off, flying high like a spaceship. Take control, take a shot.
All right, welcome back, everybody. This is Danny from Shake the Earth podcast. Appreciate you taking a listen. If you could do us a huge favor, go check out the other episodes, give them a listen, and leave us a review. I've got a good buddy of mine on today, Shane Pack.
Hi, everybody.
Shane Dog. Shane and I actually work together.
We do.
And we actually do Facebook Lives every day?
Pretty much every day, yeah.
So I want to have Shane on because he's a pretty cool dude.
Oh.
And we know each other pretty well.
Very well over these last few years. It's been fun.
And we also have a kind of a unique bond where I taught your daughter how to ride a bike.
That's very true as well. Yeah, I was a little busy at the time. I was probably a negligent father to a certain extent.
And we didn't know each other.
We did not know, we'd never met.
I crossed the line.
I was in school full time, working full time. I saw my kids like 4 hours a week, and I came home one day from school, and my daughter told me that she rode a bike today for the first time. I was like, wow, that's fantastic. Who taught you how to ride a bike?
Just wait till I marry her off.
There's this weird guy down the street, and he taught me. I'm just kidding. It wasn't like that, but she was really excited, and I was less excited. And then we met, and that's kind of how it all started.
Yeah, and then we shared some barbecue, and when the time was right, I brought you into the company that I run now, and you actually work there.
Yeah. I mean, after I begged long enough and pleaded and clawed my way in, we finally opened the door.
So what do you do for this? What do you do for Wink?
Oh my goodness.
What don't you do, right?
What don't I do? Well, I don't do a lot of things. I first started just kind of filling in holes. So at the very beginning, Wink was literally two guys in a basement. I kind of stepped in and helped with some of the social media, some of just the basic support stuff. And then from there, started to do a little bit of marketing and some of the technology management. And that's kind of where I find myself now, neck deep in technology rollouts. And it's fun.
How's the company doing?
The company is doing very well.
I'm pretending to not know anything about Wink Naturals.
It's actually a lot of fun to see the growth and just the maturity that even we're seeing inside the company, but the growth and the learning and just the sellers becoming like kind of blossoming on their own. I think that's probably the most fun for me to watch from the inside out.
That's actually why I want to have you on here, because you have a pretty unique perspective. A lot of people, we don't promote this or even talk about what Wink Naturals is, but it's the company that I started, and we have sellers, people that represent our brand. And we've got them all over the country. Yeah. And you work very closely with our sellers to make sure they're having the best experience with technology, the support. And what I want to talk about is how a lot of these sellers are, over the last 5-6 months, have developed and blossomed into really successful people in their own right.
Completely different people as well. I mean, we've seen changes that just blow me away, but I think all of it kind of started with the idea that Wink, from the very beginning, was focused around the experience, right? So it's pretty safe to say that we pretty much dedicated ourselves to making sure that our customers at the time had the greatest experience possible, great products, great service, and everything kind of came together in this wonderful package. And then extending that and broadening out that net and letting the sellers start to sell for themselves, giving them those same tools and teaching them those same skill sets, and making sure that their customers then had that same great experience. We've seen customers that turned into sellers that had no intention to become great sellers. And through this process of growing and learning new skills and putting themselves out there, they've really blossomed into confident, strong women who are leading a revolution. Really, that's what it comes down to, and it's really fun to watch. It
seems like more and more every single day. There's more of that momentum that's kind of taking place.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's almost like we're hitting our stride. Finally, we finally figured out who we are. It took a little while. It took 2 years. It took 2 years, and those first 2 years were a bit of a struggle trying to figure out, are we an e-commerce brand? Well, that doesn't really give us the impact that we want. We have great products, but that's kind of where it ended. But now with the current setup, I mean, it's just sky's the limit.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your background. You're wearing a Houston Astros fan, but your hat, but you're a Yankees fan. Why is that?
I'm absolutely not a Yankees fan. I have been to a Yankees game and I really enjoyed it. It's a phenomenal stadium. But I grew up in Houston, Texas. I spent my whole life there. Moved to Utah for school long time ago. I won't give a date and age myself, but it was a long time ago now.
46, I think.
I am 36. 36
it's
years
like
old.
the same. It's the same. 46, 36 is like...
36 is the new 46? Is that kind of what we're saying?
That's right. Or vice versa, depending on who you are and where you are in that life cycle.
That's right. So I came up here and just never left. Went to school a few times, got a degree in accounting and then a master's in business. And I got a good corporate job. And that was right about the time that my daughter learned how to ride a bike from the gentleman down the street.
I'm trying to remember. I remember my daughter hanging out.
Yes.
They were always hanging out in my house.
Yes.
Back and forth.
Right. Yeah.
Was it because I was just home, or was that right after I had left my other company?
That was right after or during your departure from Zarbee's. Yeah. Okay. So you were around, I wasn't. So you were the step-in dad that kind of filled in the gaps.
I was a stay-at-home dad for a couple months.
Yeah.
For sure.
So it was right about that time. And shortly after the bike riding incident, I walked down, and I remember you were working on a cruiser.
Land Cruiser.
A Land Cruiser. It was an old, which one was that one? That was the green one?
It was a 1976.
It was 76. I think it was
tan?
tan?
Yeah, it was the first one.
Yeah. And I was like, at first I was like, I wasn't sure what to expect. Like what kind of guy teaches another guy's daughter ride a bike? But then I realized it's just this guy's a super genuine and helpful human being, and he was trying to do me a favor. And so I realized that pretty quick. But what struck me right away was just the overall presence, to be completely honest and frank, and not trying to flatter you because you don't need that. But I felt like this guy has something going. And from the first chat on the side of your house in the garage, I remember I was standing on the rock. I didn't have shoes on, and the rocks were killing my feet. And we were talking about Zarbee's and how excited you were to leave. And from that moment, I was like, dude, this guy's next thing I want to be a part of. And that was 2 years.
Yeah, it was months, years before.
That was 2 years, I think, before.
Yep.
I mean, Wink in your mind was still just a baby. It wasn't even like really born yet.
Yeah, it was very conceptual still.
Yes. But I recognized right away, because I had a decent job. I was making decent money. I had good education. I had a nice pile of student debt. I kind of went the road that everyone goes down, that you're told your whole life. Like go to school, work hard, get good grades, go to graduate school, get a degree, and get a corporate job. And I find myself there working for people I didn't necessarily enjoy being around, and doing things I didn't really enjoy doing, and not really providing any self-fulfilling value of any kind. So I'm there, I'm getting a paycheck, but everything else is kind of lacking. And so I saw in Danny that first day, man, this guy, he's created something awesome, and maybe it didn't turn out the way that he wanted to, but he's going to do it again. And I saw that then, and that's when I decided, he didn't know this, but that's when I decided I'm going to be a part of his next thing.
That's when I started seeing him outside my kitchen window
with binoculars, doing research. But that's kind of when it started. And then we started hanging out. It was a while after that, 6-8 months later.
Yeah.
I mean, our wives were friends for a long time, but it took me a while, because I was a little skeptical always of my wife's friends' husbands, because they never really pan out the way that they're sold to be. And when we finally got to hang out, it was like, okay, yeah, like this could actually work. Like we could see ourselves working together. And fast forward a year, and
my thing was like, I didn't want to bring anybody on until I actually felt like it was somewhat stable, or at least stable enough. And when you decided to come on, it was like, okay, it's game time. Like we got to take care of everybody, and move forward. And we went from basement to garage, and garage to warehouse, and warehouse to bigger warehouse.
That's right.
But it is, it's been a fun ride. Like,
for sure.
And your experience has, I think, been pretty broad. Like you've touched a lot of components of the business. Right now we're trying to get more strategic.
I've learned 10 times more than I learned in my 6 years of school in
And
the
your
past
MBA.
2 years. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the one thing I learned in my
So-
MBA was that, hey, you need to understand what you don't understand. Like, know what you don't know.
So what's your opinion on like getting higher education, like an MBA now? Like having
Goodness.
gone through it.
I think it completely depends upon your own personal goals. I think for some people it's perfect. I mean, for some people they're more than happy just to jump on the hamster wheel and to play the yes man game and advance through ranks on a corporation and jump back and forth between different businesses and make more money. That wasn't for me. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. My dad owned his own business, so I knew what that was like from a very young age, right? And he's kind of my motivation to take the safer route, to be completely honest. I'm not putting that on him, but he pushed me really hard to go to school and to go back to school. And his whole thing was, I don't want you to carry your lunch to work. And there's some truth to that for some people, but for me, it didn't resonate because that was completely counter to what I grew up with. So
Yeah.
I was raised by a dad who was home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He was there in the mornings. He took me
Which
to
is
school.
kind of crazy because he was an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I would think that he'd see the benefit of kind of that lifestyle, but he wanted more security for you. And like security
That's what
is
it came down to.
more schooling, a stable job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now I think he's realized that he really didn't have it that bad. And looking back, I think he wished he would have probably taken a few more risks and grew what he had, because he did have something of value, but he didn't value it.
Pool cleaning business.
Yeah. He was actually the largest privately owned pool cleaning company or pool service company in the state of Texas, which is a pretty
It's its own country, basically.
it is. One day it may actually be, if it kind of continues the way we're going. But and he built that up without any college education. He dropped out after a semester.
Oh, I didn't know that. So
Yeah.
that's probably the impetus around like
Exactly.
his
That's where it all came
driving education. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yep. So he dropped out after his first semester and started working. And he's just a really hard worker, and he's naturally kind of smart, and he figured it all out. But it was a lot of trial and error and a lot of frustration. And I think he feels that he should have been a doctor or a lawyer or some sort of professional, but he doesn't realize that, he was able to provide a lifestyle for us growing up where we lacked for nothing, and we were actually probably on the upper end of the income scale.
Yeah.
But he didn't feel validated. Right. And that's what it came down to for him, was he felt like he let himself down because he didn't have respect from his peers.
Got it. He didn't have the MBA.
He didn't have
education.
it. Yeah. So he was doing so he'd have servicemen going out and cleaning pools for lawyers who were making less money than he was taking home, but he didn't have their respect. Right.
Interesting.
And
it's
that's
like
what he put the
generational
value on.
though.
It is.
Like my
It
dad.
absolutely is.
I've told people the story about my mom and dad. My dad was, and you've heard it because I think it's a motivation. But back then, our parents were probably close to the same age. Like an MBA was like a security blanket.
Yes.
You can get an MBA, you can get a job anywhere. That whole idea has changed though.
Dramatically.
My dad grew up extremely poor and farm labor, migrating, immigrating, moving around the United States, following a harvest. Wherever there was produce that needed to be picked, that's where he was, from the age of 5.
Yes.
And so for him to get an MBA at Harvard, which he did, that was a big deal. Like it was
Massive
an
feat.
anomaly.
Yes.
You don't see that. And so my dad and my mom, they did the same thing. They really drove home education. Get an education, be smart, be something.
Yeah. So just think through it. Like if your dad didn't do that, how much harder he might have pushed you. Right?
Yeah.
So that's exactly the shoes I was wearing. And it's the same with my brother. He kind of went back and got an MBA, even though he didn't really want one. And anyway, but it's all kind of culminated here. And there's definitely skills that I've learned along the way through schooling that I do get to apply here. For example, like I can see a finance page and I can look at a P&L and I can read through it and I understand it. I didn't understand that before I went back to business school very well. And just there's other little small skills that you do pick up on, but for the most part, like I probably could have saved myself a lot of money and years of my
Just
life.
coming on a Wink Naturals sooner.
Well, doing something.
I'm kidding. I'm giving you a hard time.
Well, doing something. It was already in my blood, and I felt uncomfortable the whole time. right? I felt uncomfortable at school. I was like, well, this is fine. And I graduated with a 4.0 through both my undergrad and my MBA. And because I was told, like, well, good grades will get you a good job. And so I pushed myself really hard in that regard, but I never felt that safety that came with it. I just felt unhappy.
Yeah.
You know, I felt
And you know the
unfulfilled.
joke of like the C students hire the A students.
And there we are.
In this case, it's like the D students hire the A students.
Exactly. Exactly.
No, I'm kidding.
But I could not be in a better place. Like, I feel like what we're doing here is impacting people currently, and we're just getting started. So that's
and
exciting.
you get to see that. You get to see that firsthand every day.
Every day.
Right. I mean, it's pretty impactful.
It is.
I purposely try not to talk a whole lot about Wink Naturals on this podcast because I don't
Yeah.
want people thinking that he's just pushing his company. That's not at all the case. The purpose of the podcast is to show people what the lives of those who are doing incredible things is like.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it's riddled with uncertainty, with trial,
Absolutely.
with discouragement, with failure, whatever it might be.
For sure.
And then at some point there's kind of this light that happens, and they.
So for me, I don't know how many incredible things I've done. I do know that in my life, there's been a few moments I can look back on and say, okay, that was the moment where I felt this, or that was the moment where I really took a chance on something that was unknown, right? And for me, that was when we used to hold our meetings at Blue Lemon, this small little
Which
restaurant.
is a small restaurant.
It's a small restaurant here.
And we never
in the
ate
valley.
there.
Never ate. Sometimes I got a macaroon because they're good. But it was that moment of deciding, okay, like, I'm going to give up my nice salary, my benefits, everything else, and I'm going to go join this guy in his basement, and we're going to make something cool. And the exhilaration and just the feeling of jumping off of that paven path, right? I'd been on this path that was supposedly guaranteeing me safety and income and security, but at the expense of, I don't want to be dramatic, but my soul.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, on all the upside, they take out all the upside.
All the upside.
There's
all
no
the
upside.
upside was gone. And so I was left essentially struggling the same situation with a few degrees and a job that was unfulfilling. And so I guess my only incredible thing I've done was decide to take a chance and go out there and try and make something of value that benefits and impacts other people.
To your credit, I am pretty convincing. I can usually sell a vision pretty well.
To your credit, you did sell me pretty well. You even sold me to the point where I thought we were making money when I left, and we actually weren't yet.
No, I was still funding it from my piggy bank. But I told you it was going to be taken care of.
Yeah, and you are true to your word.
Yeah,
And it's been a blast.
well, there's a lot of I think there's a lot of life lessons in that, taking that kind of that jumping in that venture. You know, most people.
Yeah.
I said this on the other podcast with Stephen Jones, but you take your little finger and you put it in front of your eye. That's how most people see. They can't see beyond an inch away from their next paycheck, their next utility bill, their next medical bill, whatever it might be. And granted, I do not pretend to say that my life has been hard or I haven't had opportunities, but we have faced some really difficult times early on. We've faced a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
But if you can get outside of the comfort of having all of your day-to-day needs met and look a little bit further beyond, I think most people will find that they have some pretty incredible opportunities if they take them.
Absolutely.
If they take them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the net of that, I think.
I agree 100%. I would just add to that, and part of that comes down to knowing who you are, right? Yeah. So you have to know who you are as your identity. Like, what is your identity? Like, who are you on the inside? What actually drives you? If it is a cushy job where you show up and you just get paid to be there, great. You're going to be happy with that. For me, that wasn't it. I knew deep inside of who I am, my identity was not that. Even though that was the road I found myself almost barricaded into, I knew that wasn't the road I was going to stay on. And so that would be my only real piece of advice, is figure out exactly who you are. Ask yourself that question. And that kind of starts with defining who you are not. And so for me, that was fairly easy. I was like, I am not a corporate drone. I am not a yes man. I'm not going to be the guy at the meeting constantly doing things and working hard and busting my butt for other people to make them money, or to make the stockholders money in my last business that I was working for. And I am not that guy. I am not the guy who's comfortable with just a paycheck. I'm not the guy who's going to live my whole life just showing up 9 to 5 and clocking in and clocking out and going home. Like, I wanted something more. I knew I was somebody that, I think I have skills. I think I have the ability and the drive and the determination to do something more than that.
What
right?
would you tell somebody who is kind of maybe in that dead end job, or they're looking at life and saying, golly, man, there's got to be more. There has to be more. But they don't want to make that jump quite yet.
Yeah. So my first advice would be prepare. I was in a position where we did have some money saved up. So I did have a little bit of a safety net where if for some reason something didn't go right, we had a little bit of a fallback, right? I think that's probably the first thing. And also prepare mentally for challenges, right? Make sure that you understand what you're getting into. Like, if you are going to jump, like, think through all the possibilities. You know, if there's a chance of failure, what are you going to do then? Think through, okay, these are things I don't understand how to do. These are skill sets I do not have. Like, if it comes down the road, like, how do I acquire the appropriate skill set to do X? Like, whatever that is, whatever you choose to do, have a plan on how you're going to accomplish it. I think that's the biggest thing. And also project success in the future. So even back back in Danny's basement, in my mind, I saw us kind of where we are today. And even where we are today is nowhere close to where we will be. But project success and visualize it and put yourself in those shoes of that guy walking down the street who is making an impact, who is changing people's lives and providing value to everyone out there that you reach. Be
prepared, have a vision for where you're going.
Yeah.
And then
be resilient.
I'll add to it, execute. Like, execute on it.
Absolutely.
No one else is going to execute for you. That's the number one thing. I think a lot of people hope that someone else, I know this guy is going to help me. I know this person, they're going to help me.
Yeah.
That may be the case, but if it isn't the case, you got to be ready to execute and always just execute on everything.
If that is the case, it's probably not somewhere that you want to be anyway.
Right.
And probably the last thing I would add to that is hold yourself accountable, right? So you have this plan, you have your goals, you have these ideas in your head, and you commit yourself to them and you hold yourself accountable to them. Like, if you fail, you own it, right? And that's something that I've learned even more since coming onto Wink, because I've definitely failed over and over again. But being able to say, okay, this didn't work the way that I planned it would. What can I do different next time? What did I do wrong this time? And how can I prevent whatever happened from happening again, right? And then moving on and basically forgiving not necessarily forgiving yourself, but being able to just accept that you're not perfect and use that as fuel to perfect yourself.
I love it. That's good advice. Shane, we're going to have you on again.
I would love to be on again.
If you are listening, this is Shake the Earth podcast. This is Danny. We have stellar people on that just share real world experience. Try to help you be better.
Yeah.
Shane is the IT dude, marketing dude.
That's right.
Wears a wizard hat of responsibilities at Wink Naturals.
I kind of call myself the duct tape guy.
He's the MacGyver.
Just kind of keep things put together.
Whatever I throw at you.
That's right.
Check us out on iTunes and Google Play. Shake the Earth. Leave us a review and check us out next week. Thanks again for listening, and go shake the earth.